Awesome. Everyone?
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Woo! Excited? What a keynote, right? That was really awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming here. I'm really excited. Again, I was here last year as well, and I've said it before, I said it again. I am super excited to be back in person at Engage, and I get, once again, to talk about two of my favorite topics, FileMaker and AI. So this is really, really great. So welcome. Harnessing AI in Claris FileMaker to unlock insights and capabilities. Ron Rios, product manager at Claris. We're going to have a lot of fun here. We'll show some cool stuff. We'll talk about different topics, some of the things that we're looking at in the horizon at Claris as well for AI. And if possible, we'll take some time to take some Q&A as well. We've got quite a bit of content, so we'll get started. Now, before we really dive in, want to see something cool? Yeah, all right. All right, so a lot of you probably know that I use AI for just about everything nowadays. And I've shifted a lot, especially in my development. I like to use AI for a lot of the things that I either am not really good at or I just don't like doing. And one of those things is actually administrating my instance. So I've got a FileMaker Cloud instance up and running over here. And I've used AI to just manage it for me. So if you see over here, I've got the data API turned on in my cloud instance. I've got OData turned on here as well. And I've got some databases up and running. There's also one user logged in. That's just me, right, on the computer. I've got FileMaker Pro running over here. Now I'm going to bring up a FileMaker file that has some AI integrated with it. And it's going to help me manage my instance. So I made available a lot of the admin API endpoints available. So the first thing here, I'm going to ask it to give me a list of all the databases that I currently have open in FileMaker Cloud. It's able to do that, bring it over here. And notice a couple of things. I didn't tell it what to call this list or anything like that. It actually chose which columns to include in there from the data API, from the admin API. So it's pretty smart in doing those things. All right, next thing. We'll speed up the video next time. So I'm going to let any users that are connected, let them know that we're going to be doing some maintenance, right? So we're thinking about doing some upgrade maybe or anything like that, and we're going to let them know that there's something there, that something's going to happen, and that we're going to take the databases down if they are connected, save their work, and things like that. And so that's me. Remember, I was still connected. So that's the message. The AI wrote this entire message, figured out that there was somebody connected there, and sent that message out to everybody who's connected. Just me. It shows up there. It's really nice. Wrote a really nice message, too. All right. So I let know let everybody know that we're going to be doing something. But I've got a lot of things to do because we are going to be doing some maintenance. And so here's are the steps that I want to do before we do any maintenance, right? I want to disconnect all the users, turn the data API off, OData off, and pause all the databases, right? Because we're going to do some maintenance. So I'm going to copy those. That's a text file. I'm just going to copy that and go over here and tell it, hey, perform the following tasks, and just paste it in there. That's it. So think for a few seconds, call the API, figured it out, performed all of them, and then came back and says, yep, everything is done. And so just so you don't think I'm lying, data API is off, OData is off, my databases are completely paused, and the user was disconnected. Isn't that cool? All right. Love that.
What about your chat assistant? How is it still connected?
We'll talk about that later. Here's another thing I really don't like doing. Icons. I am really bad at it, and I don't like doing it. So I just have AI do it now for me. So I have a little FileMaker app plugged into with a large language model, and now I can just tell it what I want. I've even described the style, and so all the icons that it creates kind of follow the same guidelines. And so I just tell it what I want, and it creates it for me. In SVG format, so I can export that out and put it back into FileMaker. Awesome. All right. Here's the agenda here for today. I'm going to try to keep it light. I want to give enough time for questions, but we still have a lot of things to cover here. So at a high level, we'll go over some of the FileMaker AI tool sets, things that we have in production today and things that we're looking at for the next FileMaker release. We'll dive into some use cases and demos, talk about next steps we recommend, and then open up for Q&A. Sound like a plan? Awesome. All right, so let's talk about those AI tool sets. So last year we were talking about, with the release of FileMaker 2024, that we had included support for vector embeddings and semantic search. And that goes directly into the data access layer that we were talking about earlier this morning. But we also have, in the learning layer, we have the compute model, which allows you to run core ML models. And the reason, if you want to talk with large language models today, in the current version that you have, you're mostly relegated to using the URL external from URL script step and also trigger Claris Connect flow with the connectors that are available there, which is really great, right? There are other layers in the stack, but these are the three that we needed to round it off. And so with the release of FileMaker 2025 later this year, we're going to round these off and introduce brand new script steps and functions that help really bring these layers up to par to where we want it to be. So first off, in the learning layer, we're going to have a new script step, configure regression model. This will allow you to create predictive models that using your own data, be able to create those models so that you can do predictive analysis. And then the predict from model will allow you to use those models that you just created, right, be able to use those and predict data off of those. We talked about earlier this morning with fine-tuning, you'll have a new script step that will allow you to push data to FileMaker server, to the fine-tuning service over there, so you can perform those fine-tuning jobs. We'll also have a perform RAG action that will allow you to interact with the retrieval augmented generation server over there to perform tasks like pushing data over there, removing data, but also asking questions directly to the AI, which will be backed by the data that you said over there. For the data access layer, so this is about being able to access information from many different sources. Again, we already had vector embeddings and semantic search, but we're going to round that off. We're going to have two new script steps, perform SQL query by natural language and perform find by natural language. And they do exactly what the name implies. Perform SQL query by natural language will allow you to just write in plain text. Right? Natural language, exactly what you want, and we'll leverage the internal SQL engine in FileMaker to write the SQL query. If you want, you can just get the query back, just the sentence itself, just the SQL statement, or we can perform that for you, and then you can get the data, which is really cool. So you get the choice of which way you want to use that. And then perform find by natural language, you can actually perform a FileMaker find. So it'll change the found set for you. So you can write whatever it is that you want. You can expose those whichever way you want to the user. They'll write that, and we can perform the find for you. Or if you don't want to change the found set, we'll actually return a JSON object that you can use with the data API. Awesome. This is really, really cool. I love that. All right. Then for reasoning, here's being able to access large language models. Again, we believe that it's so extremely important for you to be able to tap into generative AI, especially with large language models, that it necessitates a script step specifically designed for that. So generate response from model will be that for you. With all these, we have a really complete stack that'll give you everything that you're going to need to create some really amazing AI-driven applications. So you're rounding out the entire stack, and you'll have all these in the Claris platform, which is truly amazing. Now, a lot of us really are, again, out of all of these, the only one that we really kind of didn't have anything per se there was the reasoning one. We didn't have anything specifically designed for a large language model. And I think it's extremely important because all the decision-making is powered by large language model. And so we wanted to focus a lot on making sure that this was well rounded off. Now, to dive deeper on this, I kind of have to introduce a couple of concepts first. Things you probably heard a little bit out there, but I want to make sure that we're kind of on the same level. The first thing is agentic systems. And you've probably heard a lot out there about what are agents and things like that. And so at a higher level, we'll talk about what agentic systems are. I like the definition from Anthropic. They have a really nice blog, Building Effective Agents. And they go on to take all the definitions that have been out there and really consolidate that and give a really nice fluid definition for a lot of the things that we've been talking about. An agentic system is one. This is the definition I kind of like, which is fully autonomous systems that operate independently over extended periods using various tools to accomplish complex tasks. I think it's very important here to single out that they work independently. So that means we give them a task, maybe not even well-defined. We let them know that here's what we want you to accomplish. Here are the tools that you have. So it has various tools to accomplish it, and we just let them work and then give us a result back. So in order to accomplish this, a lot of, I think the industry is kind of consolidating over the fact that, well, when we started using large language models, this was kind of the basic structure. You have an input to the LLM, usually it's text, it processes and generates a response back. As in the past 2 years, as more and more developers have been starting to use it and trying to create agentic systems, certain best practices have arisen from that, and realized that in order to really create agentic systems, we need other things. The LLM needs to be able to access data in real time, relevant data, up-to-date data, and have means to retrieve information, be able to query whatever data source that we have available, and so that it has up-to-date data. LLMs also need to be able to access tools, whatever functionality that are in the backend that the LLM can leverage to accomplish whatever task that we want to give it. So in the case earlier with the admin API, right? I made it available those API endpoints so that it can accomplish those tasks. Otherwise, it would not be able to do that. And last but not least, it needs memory. It needs to be able to not only read what it's doing, be able to write, kind of save what it's doing for later retrieval, but also be able to kind of know the things that it's done previously in the interaction so that it can understand the context. And you kind of see this a lot kind of in the chat window if you're talking with an AI, right? It remembers whatever you wrote before, and that's kind of memory. We can go deeper whether that memory can be long-term or short-term, but it needs some sort of memory so it can record its interactions and be able to retrieve them later. So if we take all of this, right, basic input-output, be able to retrieve, have tools, and have memory, and everybody's understanding now that this is the basic, like this is now the lowest level of functionality that you should have with a large language model. If you have that in place, then you can really start stitching together those LLM calls and create some really amazing workflows. You can stitch them together, have input of one be the output of another, and rearrange them in many different ways to accomplish more complex tasks and be able to do a lot more with them. But all of these examples have a kind of set path, right? So we know exactly what it's going to do, so it's fairly deterministic even though it's generative. On the other side of that, so those are kind of agentic workflows. On the other side are what are really referred as a full agent. An agent has no set path. You give it a task, you give it some tools, retrieval and memory, and just step back and let it do its work. And it'll iterate and iterate, looking at the environment, see what's changed, incorporating that into its workflow, and adapting to it until it feels that it's done, it's either completed, or it decides like, hey, I can't do this, and is able to stop on its own, which is really cool. It's very, very powerful. And so if we believe that this is not just the future, but this is what's happening now, then we need to be able to bring you the tools so you can build upon all these things to be able to create this. That is the generate response from model. This new script step is meant to be that building block that you'll use to create agentic systems, whichever form that you want, whichever either simpler or complex, and be able to use that. This new script step incorporates features that allow you to retrieve information. We saw already that we're going to be incorporating new functions there, or new script steps to retrieve information, either SQL, find, the data API, and things like that, and you'll be able to incorporate those directly here into this script step. It also has the ability to specify tools, to be able to say, to expose either your custom functions, your own scripts, and have the AI decide whether or not it should run those to accomplish the task that you have for it, which is really amazing. And you'll even be able to have it run it automatically. You also have memory. So you can manage actually the messages of the conversation, of the chat that's going on, and be able to reference those things back there. And you can incorporate longer-term memory, so retrieve information from past sessions in there as well, just using all the other tools that you have at your disposal in FileMaker. We also incorporate some really cool things in here as well. It also has the ability to stream and has integration with the web viewer. Streaming is what you see if you're going to one of those AI assistants online and you're writing and you see how the text just kind of animates and just comes in one word at a time. That's streaming. It's because models take time to generate the text, and instead of waiting for the entire thing to be done and present it all in one go, we're able to bring it as they come in real time and stream it directly to a field. That looks really cool. The other thing is web viewers. So if you are comfortable using web viewer and web technology, you can stream that information directly into a JavaScript function and have really amazing user experiences for your users, which is really, really nice. And then lastly, we've got agentic mode. And this is probably the best superpower that it has. So I mentioned that you can expose your custom functions and your script steps. If you have agentic mode, it will automatically try to run those for you. What will happen is it'll run it, it'll retrieve whatever response, whatever results came back from that custom function or script, and then it'll send it to the model. If the model has to run another one or another one, we'll keep on running it. And so that one script step will iterate. It'll be a little loop running until the model decides that we're done or it reaches the max iteration that you've set for this. So again, you're having this is going to be your agentic building block for creating really amazing and very complex agentic systems. All right. Let's talk about some use cases and see some demos, yeah? All right. First off, last year when I was starting to talk here about AI, I did a demo at the keynote, and we're talking about how to be able to extract insight from your documents. So I want to revisit that because this is one of those use cases that comes up and is extremely useful, which is being able to create your own retrieval augmented generation. Now I said we're going to build one and it'll be included in FileMaker Server. But every once in a while, you're going to want to do this at the application level as well. And for whatever reason, maybe you want to constrain it to certain documents, maybe you want to constrain it to certain users, or from a security standpoint, things like that, you might be able to want to do that as well. So in this use case, what we're doing is we're going to be using semantic search, which we introduced last year. We're going to look for information in the document to try and answer a particular question. We're going to retrieve that information, then we're going to send it over to the large language model along with the original question and have it generate a response directly from that. So we're constraining, we're finding contextually relevant information, giving it to the LLM and constraining and say, hey, answer this question, but use this and only this to answer it. All right. I'm going to try to do this live. So if it doesn't work, you're out of luck. All right. All right. So I've got an application over here, and right now in my file set, I got no documents. I'm going to add a brand new document here into this application. So I'm going to drag and drop this. This file just has the release notes from last year's FileMaker release. So all the stuff that we normally put out, it's public information, really nice. I'm just going to drag and drop it in here. Now behind the scenes, what's happening is that document is fairly large, and I'm going to split it up into a bunch of little chunks of text. In this case, there are actually 19 chunks of text. And the reason is I'm creating vector embeddings for these. And the document is too large to create just one embedding for it. That's one reason. And so there's 19 little pieces of text in there. But also that means that when I'm searching for something, it can actually find the exact little piece of information of that document that I'm looking for. So let's ask it, what are the new AI features in FileMaker 21. All right, so when I hit the search button, what's going to happen is that question will be converted into a vector embedding. It'll be compared to all the vector embeddings that I have in the current found set, which is right now is just that one document. And it'll try to retrieve the most relevant pieces of that, right? There's 19 of them. There you go. Awesome. So I've had it set up to retrieve only 5. So if I look at these are the most relevant pieces of that release note, right, that try to answer that question, which is actually pretty correct. Which is very, very right. Now, if I wanted to answer that question, all I would have to do is really just read these 5 segments, and the answer to my question should be in there. Now, the cool thing is I can do this across all documents. So I've got even more documents over here. I can ask this same question, and it doesn't matter, right? Because these are the most kind of contextually relevant pieces of information from there. I can ask other questions since I have this over here. So let's say, for example, I want to ask, what is the role of a product owner? Right. The answer to that should be in other documents over here. So again, it's searching through all the documents I have in the current found set. It's finding the most relevant pieces of information out of all of those, right? There's a bunch of little chunks of text in there, and it's finding the most relevant one and bringing me those in there. And that's really cool. Again, if I need to answer the question, I could just read all those pieces of documents and answer that. But I'm lazy. I don't want to have to do that. And guess what? Large language models are really great at doing that for me. So we're going to switch this over here. And now I'm going to ask the same question as before. And just as before, behind the scenes, it's going to do a search, find the most relevant pieces of information, send those to the large language model along with the original question, and ask it to answer the question with that information and only that information. You love the effect? Isn't that cool? So here's an awesome part about this. If I look at the script, when I built this originally for FileMaker 2024, all of this was required to do the call to the large language model. In FileMaker 2025, it only takes 3 script steps. Most of it is just me parsing some stuff. Isn't that cool? I just love it. I am never going back. I am never going back. All right. Let's look at another example. One of the great things about large language models is that they are language models. They really understand language. They don't really care which language it is. They understand the underlying meaning of it. And so a lot of the models that are out there can understand or completely multilingual. So we can take advantage of that in many different ways. So in this example here, we'll take advantage of multilingual embedding to perform semantic search across different languages, which is really fascinating. Oops. Okay. One more? Oh, whatever. The LLM, we'll use the LLM to do a translation for us. So let's go and see that. All right, so I have a little CRM application going on over here, and I am going to, I've created or I've embedded this here with semantic search field. That searches here for the details of these meetings, right? So we've got a bunch of meetings, we keep notes of those, and we write those here in this details field. And so let's say, for example, that we're going to be looking for, I'll type in something here. Let's say we're looking for, I don't know, what is it? Staff training. Right? So we're searching for staff training. I'm going to hit the return key, perform semantic search. Now, I've had to set it up to return just five records, but you'll notice that if this first record, I knew I was going to find this one, so I highlighted this text here. It says employee training. It doesn't say staff anywhere. Again, it's looking for the meaning behind the text there, not the exact keywords. And so it's able to retrieve and find this one, which is very, very relevant to what I'm looking for, even though it doesn't say the exact words. Same thing happens with all of these. I've highlighted some of these, which is really great. All right, let's do another search here. Let's see, increase customer loyalty. All right, so once again, it found 5 records. These are all very relevant to the search term, but the last one is a gotcha. It's in a completely different language. Now, I don't speak Japanese, but I'm pretty sure it's related. But he said yes? Thank you. But guess what? I can actually translate it. Woo! Oh, cool. Is that a good translation? Is it a good translation? Yeah? I think it's a good one. Awesome. All right. Leave that one here for a second. Awesome. All right, let's go back over here. So again, multilingual, really great, allows you to, with semantic search, you can search across multiple languages. I've seen a lot of examples in the community already, people using it to enhance the search experiences that their users are having, again, across all different types of languages, which is really great. Let's do another one. So let's say in that same CRM solution, and let's look at exposing the model with some tools. Allow it to do things like creating records. So we'll first use a large language model to analyze the meeting details. We'll ask it to identify action items. So from the meeting, the team has talked about different things. They committed they're going to do certain things, and we want to extract those because we're lazy and we don't want to do it ourselves. And then finally, we'll ask it to create records to keep track of those things. So, all right. I've got a ad over here. Let's choose this one. And so I've created a button over here that does something very simple. It just takes the text here from the details of that meeting, and it asks the AI to generate action items for it. So I'm going to click over here, and it's very simple. I just ask it to generate it as text and put it into this field over here. That by itself, that saves a lot of time, right? Especially with a lot of records. And again, I'm very lazy. I don't want to do that. But I'm a FileMaker developer, and I want to keep everything in records. So let's just say that we created a separate table over here to keep track of all the action items. That way we can expand it. We can do a lot of things like keep track when it was completed and all that fun stuff. So let's do that. And so this button has a completely different script, but this time it's going to expose the AI to a script. I have a script that allows it to create records in my database. And all it has to do is send it as an array and say, as many records as you want, I'll take care of it, and we'll create it for you, which is really cool. I'm going to click on the button, and it creates the same action items as before, but now, using my FileMaker script, I'm being able to create those and have them directly related to this record. Isn't that cool? That was really awesome.
Can we assign them all to one of those people then?
We could. Yes, we could. So the question is, could we assign those action items directly to team members? And absolutely. I didn't do that for version 2. I didn't do that today, no. All right. All right, so we're going to take it up a notch. You were all in the keynote early this morning? All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about the demonstration that you saw there this morning. So there's an app assistant that I've been building to be able to test a couple of theories and functionality. And it works as a full agent. So it has all the functionality. I've exposed tools to it. It creates UI on the fly. So the charts that you saw and the reports, all of those are throwaways. They get created on the fly to perform the task, and then they get eliminated. So it's completely ephemeral UI. It also has a concept of artifacts. So each one of those things that it creates are complete objects, independent of one another. They get created, can get stored if you want to, but normally you just throw them away. It also keeps track of user personas. What it means is that it knows who's connected, and it keeps track of the different preferences, the role, objectives that that person has. And so it customizes the interaction based on that one person. So you can do with that is you can take it to a hyper-personalization so it interacts in a completely different way between two different people. I've also exposed to it a calculation engine. So the built-in FileMaker calculation engine is available to it to perform any calculation that it needs. LLMs are really not good at math, for example, but it can leverage other tools like this to perform those tasks. It has a voice interface. Right? You guys saw that this morning. Thanks, Michael Wallace, for the integration code for that. It has charting, and it has access to SQL. So it has all these things and a couple of other things that just kind of everything but the kitchen sink thrown at it so they can accomplish whatever is needed. So I'm going to try to do this live. So brace yourselves. All right. So I've got this set up. I've got this app assistant set up over here. It's running off of a CRM data over here. So I'm going to do a couple of simple things. So let's say show me a list of our products. Let's start with something simple. So cross fingers. There we go. Awesome. So it went into our database and decided that, hey, it did a SQL query, got the information, and used a tool that it has that allows it to create data tables like this, and decided what information to put in there, and it simply created this. And so this is completely on the fly. This is an artifact. I can throw this away. This is not stored anywhere. I don't care about it. I can throw it away, close it, and it's no longer saved. It's really nice. So it's there. But let's say I want to do a little bit more. Maybe we want to create a bar chart of those. You know what? I don't like typing. You mind if I change over to voice? Let's try that out. Let's see if it works. All right. Hey, could you create a bar chart with our products showing the sales price for them?
The bar chart displaying the sales prices of our products has been created. Let me know if you need further assistance.
So let's talk a little bit about what happened here. So I gave it a task, and I have it transcribe that and put that in text over there. It's just easier for me to know what it got. So it's transcribing behind the scenes, and whatever that command is sent over to the LLM. Again, along with all a series of functionality that I have in my own application, and say, hey, anything that you need, here's a list of all the things that you need that you might use. Here's a task that I want you to accomplish. So in the back end, it did a SQL query, right? It got the information. It knows that I have a create chart functionality. So it took the data, made any modifications that it needed for that data, or made the query all over again to make sure that it complies with the charting tool that I have, and then created the chart for me. So behind the scenes, it did several steps, stitched them together, the output of one, the input of the next, in order to be able to accomplish this. Now, all of this, by the way, this is just a web viewer. It's a simple web viewer. I'm using some free libraries out there just to do the charting. Very simple stuff because I'm really not a JavaScript person, but it's able to do that. All right, so I'm going to close this here real quick. And just so we know what we're looking at, I want to show you the relationship graph over here. Because we do a couple of things, but I want to make sure that you're aligned with what's in here. So again, these are just a few tables for a CRM, but I want you to focus on these three table occurrences. We have a table, we have an employees table, we have a sales agents table as well. And they're linked right now through the sales agent ID. I have another table occurrence of the employees table that's for managers. So this is just another TO for the employees. And I've got a manager's ID that just identifies, it's kind of self-join, that helps me identify who is a manager and who's manager, right? Not the best schema, but it gets the job done for what we need to do. So I'm going to open up here to Windows. So these are layouts. There's a list of employees on the top, and we got a list of the sales agents, sales agent records here in the bottom. I'm going to scroll all the way down here. And let's move this here to the side a little bit, and let's have some fun here. So, hey, I'm new to the company and still don't have an employee record. Can you please create one for me?
Please provide your name and the regional office you belong to, Central, East, West, or US. And if you have a manager, their employee ID. With this information, I can create an employee record for you.
Okay, the reason it's asking that is that I've set up that the regional office is a required field for it. The manager is not, right? Because not everybody is going to have a manager. So let's try this out. Yeah, I'm going to be working out of the East regional office. I don't have a manager, and I think you already know my name.
Your employee record has been successfully created.
There you go.
If there's anything else you need, let me know.
Okay, that worked. All right, let's throw a curveball at it and see if it can do this. All right. Well, we need to onboard another employee as well. His name is John Appleseed. He will be a salesperson, and he will be reporting directly to me.
Please provide the regional office for John Appleseed, and I will proceed to create both his employee and sales agent records.
I totally forgot that, right? He'll be working out of the East Regional Office as well.
The regional office should be one of the specified options: Central, East, West, or US. Please clarify which one John will be working in.
John will be working in the East Regional Office.
John Appleseed's employee and sales agent records have been successfully created. Let me know if there's anything else you need.
That worked. So let's review. It figured out that, so I needed to create, in order to create him as a sales agent, a employee record would need to be created first, because the requirement for sales agent is that you need an employee ID, right? And so it figured that out. It also figured out that, it needs a regional office, and it grilled me on that one. But it was able to create both records, right? It had to create the employee record first to get the employee ID, and then the sales one. I didn't tell it in which order to create those. It figured those things out because it knows the requirements for both of these things. That's the way an agentic workflow works. Right? It needs to figure it out. You give it the tools, you give it a task, and it'll try to figure it out on its own, which is really good.
Check to see if John already existed?
Huh?
Did it check to see if John existed?
Did it check to see if John existed? No, I told it to create it. So, but you can. All right, this is just an example of what we can do. All right, I'm going to stop here for a second just to see, and I'm going to go out here on a limb. Is there anything you want me to ask or try to do here? You know what? Give me a second. Hey, could you create a document listing all of the tools that you have available?
I'm here to assist with the FileMaker-based app and can provide information on how to use it effectively. If you have any questions or tasks related to the CRM app or FileMaker platform, feel free to let me know.
Yes, do me a favor. Please list all of the tools that you can perform.
How about an org chart?
An org chart. I've never tried an org chart. There's a lot of employees. That might be. All right, so I'm going to show over here. So all of these scripts are available. All these functionality are available here to perform. So it can execute
I'm here to help
SQL.
with tasks related to the FileMaker-based CRM app. Here's a list of tools I can utilize to assist you.
All right.
1, display data table.
Oh, there it goes.
Organize
Yeah.
and display data efficiently
It
in a
is doing
table
it.
format.
There you go.
2, perform.
All right, so here's a list of all the. Shut her up. That's fine. The one you saw this morning, by the way, it's a different audio. We're doing a different. In that one, you're using the real-time API from OpenAI. You can interrupt it there, but the Wi-Fi here just doesn't really. It's not really good. I don't even want to try it. But here's a list of all the things that the AI can do. So I don't know if we want to try something.
Might do that.
Huh?
So that Mermaid JS might do the org chart.
It might do the org chart. I don't know if there's enough information to do that, but I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Can you create an org chart? Org chart of all. I'm the CEO. Yeah.
You don't have a manager, so you got to be the.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's going to break because some of them. Yeah, it's going to break because not everybody has a manager, and it's probably not. And it's not really good, but I'll give it a shot and see what it comes. The data really isn't great. I'm just using it for demo purposes, but it's really nice. So once again, it did the SQL query behind the scenes, did it the best it could to put this. Again, this data is really not good, but it tried to do it and did whatever it can, right? So it has charting capabilities. It'll try to chart anything that you give it. I didn't do that. That was not the AI. They're coming. I know, right? They're coming for us now. They're coming. They are coming for us. Awesome. All right. All right. Yeah. Yes.
What LLM are you using?
Somebody's asking here, what large language model are we using? In that case, I'm using GPT-4o for this one. I've used several others. There's some really great ones. But for the voice, their models are really good, especially for just translating, using Whisper and their text-to-speech is just really, really good. So anyways, quick demo of that. Full agent. You can create all these things with the current version of FileMaker. It's going to be so much easier with FileMaker 2025 later this year. All those tools you'll have the building blocks needed to create really amazing agentic systems.
Follow-up question, if I might. Are you able to use a local LLM as part of this, or does it have to be a remote one?
So the question is, we're jumping directly to QA. Can you use a local model? Absolutely. My original version of this uses a combination of the two, uses some cloud models and some local models, but for the purposes of here, I didn't want to complicate things. I just went completely cloud. But absolutely can do both of those things. All right. Before we leave, I do want to make sure that you have some next steps and just some recommendation on things that might be helpful for you as you continue in your AI journey. First up, we have some really amazing AI training track at Claris. If you haven't already, please go look at it. We're continuously adding new content there all the time, and we'll continue to expand that in the future. I highly recommend getting acquainted with the concept of tool use or function calling, because that powers a lot of the things that you saw here today. Two places where I recommend kind of getting started is OpenAI's documentation. They have a complete page talking specifically about function calling. And Cohere, which is another provider of large language model, has a whole large language model university. It's just a nice place with a lot of content. They have a whole section about tool use. And then the next concept is agents and everything about agents and agentic system. Highly recommend that article that I mentioned earlier from Anthropic, Building Effective Agents. It does a great job kind of breaking down these concepts, showing some agentic flows, and kind of their spin on it, kind of explaining things in a really nice light. I also recommend huggingface.com. Hugging Face has a really nice course on agents specifically, really, really nice. Hugging Face, if you're not aware, is the largest AI community out there. They host large language models, they host data as well. Really, really great resource. And now they've got some really great content there as well. So with that, we'll open up for Q&A for whatever time we have left. We'll start over here. You have a question?
My name's Thomas. What's your name?
Ronnie.
No, that wasn't my question.
Now you're going for two questions.
So I'm curious about, you said Hugging Face. What about LangChain, and what about some of the other things that are going on in the AI world?
So I mentioned Hugging Face, and he's asking about, the question is, what about LangChain and all the other tools that are out there? Go for it. I mean, I think every day there's more and more tools out there. I think you should try all of them. That being said, when we're putting things into production, you want to make sure that things are secure and things are well integrated. I think we all feel comfortable, right, with the FileMaker and the Claris platform. And so we're bringing all the tools that you need so that you can accomplish most of the things that you actually have to do directly into the platform. All the data is there. You don't have to move data around. Your security is already in place, and you use the exact same tools that you've been using for years. But by all means, please test everything out. Learn more. Incorporate that into your own workflow.
And share it on the community, what you learned.
Yes, please share what you learned to the community. This is the best way for all of us to grow together in our AI journey. Have a question back there?
Yeah, hey, Ronnie.
Hey.
One of the reasons we bring FileMaker data out to the web is to avail ourselves of some of these third-party libraries that give us capability to generate a chart, then export it. Are we still going to be boxed by the limitations of the web viewer here to only be able to export data that FileMaker can export? Or are there avenues to export some of the ephemeral chart or table data as Excel files, Word, or PDF?
So if I understand your question correctly, there are some limitations within the web viewer and how to integrate it with the rest of the data in the platform and moving the data in and out of it as easy as possible in order to take advantage of the libraries, the different libraries, yes. We are always looking at ways to make it better. There are things that we're looking into because we see the web viewer as a very important tool going forward. And we're looking at better ways to kind of move data in and out. I can't share anything else with you, but we're absolutely going to do that. If you have anything specific, please come talk to us. I'd love to hear your perspective and see how we can improve that for sure. Question back here?
Hey, Rennie.
Yeah.
With these new features that are somewhat hardware dependent, will we have Claris Cloud hardware to support GPUs and such to better support these features in the future?
So the question is about the hardware needed to support a lot of this functionality, whether or not we'll have any cloud resources to be able to run these models. Right now, what we've announced so far is that we're bringing in the ability to run these on-premise. What we've heard very clearly from the community is that you want to run these locally. You want to have control over where the data is, where the inference happens, and do those things. So we're going to start there. We want to make sure that you have the tools that you need to run this within your environment in whichever way you want. There are still cloud resources that you can use. There's third-party providers and things like that, like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Cohere. You can use those. What's going to happen now is you'll be able to do a hybrid approach if you want to. Whether or not we will provide cloud inferences or things like that, we can discuss those things, but not right now. Yep.
So regarding queries that might be more common, say organizational charts, let's say that's a common thing, is there a way to pull up a certain layout that is, say, pre-prepared for something like that rather than using like a web viewer?
So the question is for, maybe there's a question that happens, or a request that happens fairly common, right? That all the users are doing or asking for, or a lot of users are asking for a particular operation, like the org chart in our case. Instead of having something that's created on the fly, can we have it go directly to a particular layout or something like that? Absolutely. You can have it do whatever you want, which is really fantastic. I did this all here on a web viewer just to play around, but the expectation is that most of you will probably have a hybrid approach where you're going to have a lot of stuff you have integrated with your existing applications, leveraging the layouts and the scripts that you already have, but now making them available to the AI. So for sure. Over here.
With the ability to make private AI models now and leveraging our community, is there going to be a way for the community to share all these models together? I mean, that would be extremely powerful.
I love that question. So, so the question is, now that we will have the ability to train our own models and run these models locally, will there be a place for the community to come together and share all the things that they're creating? I love that. For now, we're absolutely leveraging Claris community, right? That's the first stop for those things. We don't have a particular place right now thought about for sharing models in particular, but one of the things I love about the Claris community is that it comes together. I've said it before, the Claris community is the most welcoming developer community I've ever been a part of. All the things that I've learned of really have come from asking questions and having others reading their content and resources. AI will not be any different, and so we will have to leverage the entire community for all of us to move forward. So I can absolutely, for sure, we will be using that. Next question.
Sounds like a GitHub or a Docker Hub for LLMs. Isn't that what Hugging Face is?
Maybe. I don't know. we'll get to that point. You have a question back there?
Yeah, when making these queries using the LLMs, how consistent are the results that you get back?
So the question is, how consistent are the results that we get back when we do these queries to the model? It depends. There's a lot of techniques that you can do to help make it as consistent as possible and reduce its creativity, all right, and make sure that you constrain it. There's different settings like temperature. There's the prompt engineering. There's constraining it to the context. So there's a lot of way that you can constrain it. You don't always want that, by the way. Like you don't always want it to be a very narrow scope. Sometimes you want it to be creative and be able to look and think outside the box. There are a lot of tools, a lot of levers that you can move around. Everything from RAG, semantics, using semantic search, things like that, prompt engineering, like I said, and even the temperature. Temperature is a very common attribute used for large language models where you can crank up the creativity, right, and let it just come up with different things, or bring it down and make sure that it's completely narrowly focused on what it is you're asking. Over here.
This is so odd. I don't know a lot about the file formats, but could you potentially use its own DDR for searching for a field that is used in an SQL statement or something to that fact?
Okay, so the question is, could we expose to the AI the internal file format so that it has all the context that it needs to in order to perform tasks? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, what I was doing here is we released a function last year that allows you to create the DDL for all of your for your database schema and creates it in SQL. LLMs love SQL, right? Because there's decades of information out there, so they all know SQL. And so all I'm doing is sending over there, using that function, which gets my database schema, and sending it to the LLM so that it knows all my fields, all the names, the relationships, and all those things. There's a bunch of other functions in FileMaker that allow you to extract those pieces of information from your file.
Is the file type though, like if I gave it XML or if I gave it HTML, what are the limitations or does it matter?
So the question is, what if we gave it like just the XML, like the DDR or something like that? Would it work? Maybe it's a little wonky there because there's a lot of information there that it doesn't need. My recommendation is to just give it only as much information as it needs for it. I'll give you an example. So for the natural language to find, we're only giving it whatever's on the layout. So we're pulling out all the fields that are on the layout and sending just that and say, hey, with these fields, create a find request, right? That gives you much better results because you're constraining it, making sure that it use that. How are we doing on time? I don't know. We're good? I just want to make sure we don't get kicked out. Over here in front.
Yeah, with the retrieval augmented generation, are the vectors stored per user, only for that user, or can they be shared across users? And if so, if you can share them, are the permission sets taken into account so that it's not sharing data that shouldn't go to another user?
Yep. So the question is for the retrieval augmented generation server, how are the permissions set? Are they shared among all the people, or can you constrain it to a particular user? For the server, I don't want to get too much into the details because it's still unreleased. But for example, for the one I showed over here, that is constrained to a file. So it completely follows all of the access privileges view set in that file. So whatever the user has access to, the AI has access to, but nothing more. So if it doesn't have access, if the user does not have access to a field, neither does the AI, which is really great. Any other questions?
So when you fed the document in originally, you created chunk size.
Yeah.
Do you have a kind of a determination on how big the chunk would be? And is that then the find in that sequence where you're asking for the question, is it doing a performance, or it's doing a find on those chunks to narrow the set and then asking the LLM to extract additional data from it?
So the question is, in the example I showed where I was asking questions out of the documents, one, how did I determine the size of those chunks, right? That file was split up into a bunch of little chunks. How to determine that, and whether or not was the AI expanding on the search outside of that. Did I get that correctly? Sure. On the size, so we're using embedding models, and embedding models do have a limit on how big the data that the input can be in order to produce a vector. Most of them have a cutoff, so what they'll do is they'll just truncate it. So if it's too large, they'll just take the first part. So you can throw a really large document at it, it doesn't matter because it'll only take the first part. So you want to cut that information into bite sizes that it can hold. How big that is, there's a huge debate on that, and really it's trial and error. I just chose a size that was just comfortable within the window of context for the embedding model that I was using. So, but
find for the particular thing you were looking for,
yeah.
Is it pre-finding on those chunks and then sending those chunks to get summarizations, or?
So when I'm performing the find, I'm asking the question. It's finding the most relevant ones. I have set up a limit of 5. In my case, everybody's different for every use case. So I'm setting it to 5. It gets those 5, and only those 5, and takes that data, all of those, and says, hey, here's segment 1, here's chunk 2, 3, 4, and 5, and sending that and only that to the LLM along with the question. It says, hey, answer this question only with these chunks. Don't use anything else. Don't be creative about the answer and only do this. There are other ways, by the way. You could chain those things and say, hey, summarize this, or if you need more information, tell me and I'll do another search. And you can do search and search and search, and you can create kind of an agentic workflow of RAG and get even better results. For the purposes of this, I think just one straight up was enough. Another question? Somebody who hasn't answered.
You gaze at multiple documents,
Yes.
and you said I only want to see the top 10 results. Does it go through every document and then try to prioritize them to give you back those 10?
So the question is, I have a bunch of documents, but I had to set up to retrieve only 5 little segments, 5 little chunks. How's it prioritized? How's it determining that? Well, it's using semantic search, and what it's doing is I asked it to give me just 5. So it's returning only the 5 most relevant ones, the ones that have the best cosine similarity value compared to the query that I asked. So the question that I put, it's comparing that to all the other vector embeddings of all of the documents and finding the 5 that have the highest cosine similarity, the ones that are closest in meaning, if you will, to the original question, and returning 5 and only 5 of those out of those, I don't know, a couple hundreds or something like that were there. Back there?
Yeah, well, you talked a little bit about memory, long-term or short. So I was just curious, how is that, where is that stored, how is that managed, and how is it referenced? Because I know like the ChatGPT API, for instance, has none of that. So how is what you were...
So earlier I mentioned that we could use memory, especially with the new script step, and that you can make a distinction between short-term memory and long-term memory, and how's that managed. For the script step itself, it's just the kind of the chat, so if you will, the short-term memory, but you also have instructions there. What you put there, however, is completely up to you. So even though the chat is short-term memory, just a current interaction, you could perform a semantic search on, if you save all your chat history and you do a semantic search and retrieve all those conversations and summarize it, maybe, you can incorporate those into the current chat, and now you have long-term memory there as well. So all the building blocks are there. How you arrange them determines whether or not you can have short-term or long-term memory. I hope that makes sense. I think we have time for a couple more.
Are you going to have that file, this sample file available?
I was waiting for that question. I was wondering, it took long enough. So the question is, will I make the file that I used here today, will I make that available? Short answer is, I want to. The version I have, I know. The version I have here is, I did build it originally using FileMaker 21. I am converting it to using the new tools, because it's just so much easier. But it also has a lot of tech debt. I've been using that for 2 years. There's stuff in there that doesn't make sense anymore. And so I'm looking for volunteers that can help me clean it up. So if you would, anybody who wants to volunteer to go through my code, which is a scary thought, and clean that up and make it available, I would love to make it available to the community.
We'll make it a t-shirt?
We'll make it a t-shirt. So if there's any volunteers, any takers, I'd be more than happy to give you the file if you promise to clean it up and bring it back to the community. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Awesome. Mike?
I also have a agentic thing that I'm producing that's in the same flow that has multiple tiers of agents that I'll be releasing as well. So.
And that requires no cleanup. Mike's code is amazing, by the way. He's the one who provided me for the one in the demo, that real-time API, was his code. It was fantastic. Highly recommend you go to his Git repository and use it if you want to set it up. Mike will give you the link. He has a Git repository where he has the integration between FileMaker and the OpenAI real-time API. So that allows for that voice interaction that you saw earlier this morning, where you can actually interrupt the AI and shut her up and say, hey, wait up, I want to do something else. It's really fantastic. All right, one last question. I think we have time for one last question. No? No? Awesome. If nothing else, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.